AA members believe if you want to drink, that's your business. But if you want to quit, that's the business of AA. And Alcoholics Anonymous has been successfully in business for drunks like me for nearly 100 years. AA is effective, virtually free, especially when you compare it to a lot of other recovery programs, and it works very well for people who want to follow a few simple instructions. I know firsthand that AA is the Society of the Second Chance, but I also know that many of you who are watching this, and without having ever attended an AA meeting, somehow still seem to know that God gets talked about in AA. I also know that God thing keeps a lot of people from ever even investigating what AA might have to offer. You can relax now. AA meetings are not prayer meetings. No one's going to stand up and deliver a sermon. No one's going to talk about sin and salvation. No one is going to tell you that hell awaits a person like you. Alcoholics in AA already know way too much about hell. We've lived in it. AA proved to be our way out. Stay with me, and I'll tell you today what AA's God is about and what it isn't. AA is where I got sober, and it's where I've stayed sober. But in keeping with AA's traditions, I've kept my last name in these videos to myself. Anonymity is the second word in AA's name. It's Alcoholics Anonymous. Anonymity is important in AA. The AA program of recovery offers both a psychological approach and, a spiritual one. But it's in no way a religious program. People must first be ready to receive it, and it helps if they've made up their mind that they'd like to quit drinking. To recover, alcoholics must quit drinking because there's still no cure for the fatal disease of alcoholism. There is only remission from its symptoms through abstinence. Sorry about that. That's the truth. But I hadn't made up my mind about my own need to quit when I went to my first AA meeting. See, I wanted to be able to manage my drinking. So I figured I could learn from the mistakes of those losers who were in the room there. And then I could fix my own. I could drink safely if I knew how they couldn't. But instead, before that first meeting was even over, I realized the people there had a quality of life that I wanted a piece of. My life was crap at that time. Theirs seemed happy. So I became willing to try to quit drinking by using what they suggested. In other words, I became teachable. I still consider that was my first AA miracle. Miracle number 1. And I've had a lot more miracles in AA since that first one, including my ability to stay sober all these years. But that first one was huge, and I remain grateful. Now, back to that God thing. The God in AA is one of our own understanding. There's no dogma, just an acknowledgement that there is something bigger than our own egos, something that can and will help us if we ask for help. Many members claim the AA group itself as their higher power, because the group's power is clearly greater than their own. The members have been able to stay sober where they have not been able to. So there's a power there. Every single person in an AA meeting will have a different idea of what their higher power might be. The nice thing is, none of them are there to try to convince you that they have the best idea. As it clearly states in AA literature, and this is a quote, "We represent no particular faith or denomination. We are dealing only with general principles common to most denominations." And that's from the AA book entitled Alcoholics Anonymous, which is known in AA simply as the Big Book. And, many of the early members, the very earliest members of AA, reverted back to their Christian upbringing when they got sober. But they soon learned trying to rescue another drunk by talking about their religion simply did not work. But allowing alcoholics to consider finding a God of their own understanding did work, and it still does. Most of the same earliest members, they reviewed every chapter of the Big Book as it was being written. They had no problem putting the word God in the text, but they were dead set against any established religious teachings being used. Spirituality, yes, but religion? Positively not. Those early AA members reasoned if they couldn't even agree among themselves about differing theologies, how could they tell anybody else about it? Besides, just about all of them at one time or another had rebelled against the religion they had been brought up in, or been exposed to at some time. That's because drunks feel a lot of guilt during their drinking days. It's easier to reject the concept of God entirely than to sit around thinking there's a white-bearded old geezer somewhere watching your every move, judging what you're doing, making a list to condemn you to eternal damnation. Yeah. The mindset of the heavy drinking crowd is pretty much, I'd rather not think about that, thanks. See ya. So alcoholics are pretty much surprised and delighted when they arrive in AA to not get preached at about God. They are advised to mainly just think of a higher power, one that offers them good, orderly direction. G for good, O for orderly, D for direction, G-O-D. I had a wagon load of my own doubts about this God thing when I got to AA, and I was very vocal about how God had let me down throughout my life. So how was I supposed to trust a God like that? My first AA sponsor, which is basically a recovery life coach, sober life coach, once asked me to write down a list of all the qualities I would expect to find in a best friend. I sat down and I wrote intelligent, witty, kind, helpful, fun to be with, caring, happy, and so on, a bunch of those things. When I had finished and showed her the list, tapped it with her finger and she said, "There, that's the God of your understanding. Use that God until you find a better one." It worked for me, and it still does. It still does. And during my time in recovery, I've learned that the God of my understanding has all the qualities I wrote down on that best friend list. Many more besides. But I'm not here to convince you of it. Not here to convince anyone to join Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm here on YouTube to offer some tips about things that have worked for me and millions of others for staying sober. And not only staying sober, but enjoying life as a sober person. Because when a drinking alcoholic even thinks about living sober, the panic sets in, and life will never have any fun again. We're going to get sober. It's going to be grim. We tend to forget that the fun in our drinking is usually long gone by the time the worrying about our drinking sets in. And in the beginning, drinking was fun. That's why we kept doing it. But as our alcoholic illness progressed, that early fun got replaced by fear and anxiety, nausea, loneliness, sometimes straight up panic. Anyone with an interest in what the AA program has to offer can easily join an online meeting, listen for a bit, and either stay or zoom out again. If it doesn't feel like your cup of tea, you can leave at any time. There's no pressure. AA members don't take prisoners. There's a lot of solid information about alcohol on YouTube. Stuff that can, excuse me, stuff that can properly scare you even worse than I may have done in some earlier videos. And there's one I can definitely recommend. It's called the Huberman Lab Podcast. What alcohol does to your body, brain, and health. And it just describes the effects of alcohol on the human body and brain. Dr. Huberman has made several videos on the subject of drinking. They're all excellent. And in them, you'll find documented information about how poisonous ethanol is to our entire system, and how this is true even for the occasional drinker. Never mind for those of us who drank it by the bathtub full. Huberman also presents information on how to spot potential alcoholics by their behavior. I know I certainly qualified as a teenager by what he described. I wish I'd known that. But I'll let Dr. Huberman and others like him give you all the scientific stuff. I'm just here on YouTube to share my own experience as an alcoholic whose sober life has grown into one of joy and fun, and even in my old age, real adventure. Life didn't end for me when I got sober in AA. That's when it really started. Today I have friends all over the world, many of whom I visit online on a regular basis. My family appreciates and loves me. My pets adore me. And best of all, over my time in recovery, I have also even learned to like me. I'm living proof that long-term remission from alcoholism is not only possible for me, and many other people also have it. There's absolutely nothing unique about us. If we could get sober and stay sober, anyone can get sober. All that anyone needs to do to quit drinking is to want to live and to feel good again. Then to make a decision to get help in AA or elsewhere. You need to get help. But because AA saved my own life, I believe it offers alcoholics the perfect support system for getting through our life challenges intact. AA gave me the tools I needed to get and stay sober and to enjoy sobriety. It gave me written directions and real caring friends and meetings where I could let off steam and learn from others how they stayed sober while coping with difficulties and situations similar to mine. A life in recovery from alcoholism brings expected and unexpected rewards, like our family now being proud of us, or just simply feeling good when we wake up in the morning. How long has it been since you felt that way? If any of this sounds good to you, be brave. Check out AA or some other program of recovery. See what they have to offer. You have nothing to lose, and maybe everything to gain. If today's video has been helpful to you, please click on the thumbs up below. You can subscribe here too, and that will help me to continue to keep doing this, so I hope you will. In my next video, I'm going to talk a bit more about what AA actually requires of us, what it teaches, and what it doesn't. After that, I want to talk about the families of alcoholics and how our drinking affects them, where they too can go to find some help. Till then, remember, every recovery from alcoholism begins with one sober hour. Keep sober.